Lindenhurst is a village of 27,000 on the south shore of Long Island, New York. These are the people who grew up there and their stories. Everyone I know is from Lindenhurst.
I just draw all day and all night. That's what I do.
Yeah, so
It probably
Phil's
doesn't make
working
sense.
on something he can't really talk about or go into too much detail, but basically he's drawing all the time till it's done.
Yeah, until I finish.
Mm-hmm.
Like the deadline. Then even after that, I don't know. You know,
Right
it's
on.
never over.
So let's talk about your family and how they came to live in Lindenhurst.
Yeah, when did the Tajalle show up in Lindenhurst?
That's a long one.
We have time.
Yeah,
Well,
that's the deal here.
I come from a Navy family. Mostly everyone's like both sides of my family were in the Navy, and my parents grew up on a naval base in Alameda, California. But over the years, my grandparents didn't want to live over there anymore, and they got a house in Lindenhurst, amongst all places. I don't know. I came here when I was about 2 years old. My brothers came before me here, before my mom moved out here too.
So
Obviously, I come from
was there
there.
any connection to New York before that, or it's just they picked a place on the map that they wanted to go?
I because after he got out of the Navy and whatnot, mostly all of my family went to work for the airlines.
Okay.
My grandfather worked for Delta, and my other uncle worked for TWA, and they both worked at JFK. So I guess when he left California, he came for a job at the airport.
Okay.
And I was raised by my grandparents mostly. So
Gotcha. So when you say your brother came before you did, Mike or Greg, or both of them?
both of them.
Gotcha.
I came when I was 2 years old. So
You're you the youngest of the bunch?
I was. Now I'm technically the middle child.
Okay.
So Mike used to be the middle child.
Right.
He was the one who was teased for. Now they're like, Billy, technically now you're the middle child. And I'm like, I guess I am. So I still feel like the baby, maybe.
So what are your first impressions of Lindenhurst? First memories of Lindenhurst?
First memories.
I'm assuming
It's
you don't remember being 2 years old.
Some people do.
I do.
Okay.
I do. So I remember getting here, and I don't know. I thought it was a strange house. I guess I didn't even probably know what a house was, but I still remember. But I remember I used to cry because my older brothers would go to school at Rawl.
Uh-huh.
I didn't understand where they were going.
You just knew
I don't know.
they
I
were
guess
gone, and they may
they
or may not come back. Yeah.
They weren't playing. They couldn't stay and play. They had to go somewhere. I guess I didn't understand what school was, but I remember that they were leaving, and I would stand at the door and watch them leave, and I'd be like, "Where are they going?" And I don't know. And that's probably my earliest memory until and other weird memories, like standing at the bank and not being able to see over the things
Which
like
bank?
that. I guess it was Key Bank. It might still be on Wellwood, right near what used to be the Usenza, the Ronalds,
Ronald's, gotcha.
right over.
So that's a
That
Chase
old gas
now.
station.
And I don't. It might have been a chemical bank or something back in the day.
So for reference,
I think it was
Roll School is north of
Mhm.
Lindenhurst.
North Lindenhurst, yeah,
Yeah.
north side.
Yeah, so that immediately puts you in a different kind of area than the rest of Lindenhurst. Kind of isolated, I guess, but in elementary school, you really only know the
Absolutely.
other people in elementary school, so it's all sort of isolated anyway.
It was. I felt isolated. I didn't know there was another like set of kids that exist. I don't know what I thought as at that age, but
I get what you're saying, though. You saw the same kids all the time, you know what I mean? Unless you were in Little League, you weren't going to experience other kids.
exactly. and me and you coincidentally used to know the same kids.
So
Accident.
we're a year apart from each other, and having both grown up in North Lindenhurst, we both, and going to that elementary school, I knew a couple kids that lived in your neighborhood, and vice versa, I'm sure.
Yeah, which was strange. So, and I used to walk to roll, so I was like,
this is a funny thing too. The school budget was not passed when we were in elementary school, so everybody walked to school because there were no fucking buses. And then a kid got hit, and the parents threatened to sue the district. And they're like, okay. These kids can't be walking to elementary school alone at 8 a.m.
I mean, if it wasn't for that, I probably wouldn't have been so. It goes back to being an artist. I wouldn't have been able to stop at the comic store every morning before school.
That's what's up. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a big turning point then.
So, yeah, it was right across the street from it. So it was like a deli. What was the name of that deli back in the day? It had the weirdest name. It was called We'll Do You Right.
Yeah, hell yeah.
It was right by Modern Warrior.
Oh, and there was a comic book store there? So that wasn't Bailey's.
No. There was like a baseball card comic book store called GC Jam right next to it.
Yes.
Across from what is now the CVS, but used to be Wellwood Video, Little Venice, and a whole shopping center full of shit.
Wellwood Video, we were always there too.
Slice and Ice
was
another one where you could get pizza and Italian ice.
Wellwood Video was a huge place for us too, though, in North Lindenhurst. The video rentals and video games. Me and Phil were talking about recently how it's very strange that like over 100 kids in Lindenhurst probably played the same copy of the same video game because they all rented it from the one place. You know, that's a very foreign concept to kids these days.
It had to be the same copy. Even the same movies, whenever you'd go in there and they're like, "Oh, somebody has that already. They're returning Wednesday."
Me and you were both scared of the same box to Monkey Shines or whatever other horror movies. Chopping Mall.
They had one of those. They had one of those forbidden areas too. There, I remember.
Yeah, the saloon door.
Yeah, they had. I was like, "What's back there?" Never really.
You don't want to know.
Yeah, we didn't really want to know. But even with the video games, that's the first place. They had Street Fighter 2 at the GC Jam. That was like, that whole place was huge to me. Like, I don't know. I didn't even know. I had some comics here. I was like looking at like how much they used to cost. It's just insane. It's like,
anything costs that little money.
Yeah, like my lawn mowing money or whatever it was. Or you could skip lunch and then have extra comic book money or
right.
And that was about it. And then you're like, but it was enough to do it. So now I look at it now. I'm like, there's no way.
I wonder how much school lunch costs now. It was a nickel when I was in kindergarten.
I think they have like payment plans, like $200 a meal and pay $5 a month.
It's like an iPhone. You're just paying it off forever.
Just pay forever. It's just.
Yeah. So. I guess when did you start drawing?
Back then, I'd say I started drawing immediately. I don't remember a time where I wasn't drawing, but I do remember my grandfather taught me how to draw Charlie Brown because I really liked the newspaper comic of it. And I think from there, he kind of just showed me on a piece of graph paper how to do it. I don't even know how he knew how to do it. I guess he just thought of it as he was he was a radio man in the Navy, and he was kind of like an engineer, and he's always fixing cars and whatnot. But he knew how to just figure it out on a piece of graph paper, like where the circles would go and whatnot. So
sure, that
was big for me because once I figured out how to do that, I was kind of like, I guess once you see somebody do something, then you know it's possible. I think that's probably more. So to be able to see someone actually make the thing that you're staring at all the time, like appear on the paper, it was like, oh, I can do that.
You can see the process in action.
Yeah, once you see the process, it was like, I mean, it took me a few times to get it right, but once I got it right and I brought it back to him, he was like, oh, you did it. I guess it was the positive reinforcement of it too. It's kind of always good, I think.
Were you big in taking out those library books, like How to Draw Mickey Mouse or Bugs,
all,
you know?
all of them. If you went to the library and you couldn't get them, it's probably because I took them all out. How to draw cars,
Yeah.
planes, stuff I couldn't even figure out how to do. It was too complicated. But I think trying to do it was a big deal. But I drew a full blown comic like second grade, I think.
Wow.
I did I think it was like 13-page Ninja Turtles comic. Like way before anyone was doing something like that. My teacher was really impressed. I think this was at Roll. And I don't know how they photocopied back then, but the teacher made like an extra copy of it. She was like so excited. I was super excited too.
That's ambitious for a second grader for sure.
Yeah, and it had like storyline and whatnot. I don't know if we're name dropping people's names on here, but
go for it.
I wonder if any of the kids still have them, you know. But I don't know. But I mean, like one of the kids was Mike Morrison. There's a few kids in my class who like they got it. The teacher made them copies too because they wanted a copy of it. But that was probably one of the bigger ones for me. But on top of that, I started winning like those fire department awards, like the fire safety like poster things and stuff, like the artwork contest. And that, I guess that again, once you start winning, like, oh, this is like you won something, like,
yeah,
this drawing won out of everybody who entered the contest or whatever. So it's kind of like, oh wow. I guess that too, like, you know, as a young kid, once those little things they get you to. I guess you're kind of seeking that approval in a weird way. It's the same
it's
kind
validation,
of,
you know?
Yeah, it's validation for sure. You're like, and everybody's like, oh wow, this comic is awesome. This turtle comic you did, and then it's like, oh wow, you won this trophy. Oh wow, like, what are you gonna do next? But then I actually won every year. I think every year. Yeah.
That would track.
Into junior high.
Was Dobkins your art teacher?
Yep, Dobkins was my art teacher.
Okay. She was a relatively new teacher, I think, when we were there.
Yeah, she was the new, like, young person, like, looked like, I don't know, it looked like she was in her 20s now that I think back on it.
That's probably right.
I went to art intramurals instead of the sports ones in the morning.
Like, I didn't even know they had those.
Yeah, I would go before and after school. And she's one of the bigger advocates for me being like an artist. So she entered me in a bunch of contests back then. I won, besides the fire department stuff, I remember I won no smoking campaign. And I think that was a national one. I won recycling. And like I had a whole, I don't even know where any of these trophies and things are, but certificates and weird. I was like, I always make the joke that I peaked back then. That was probably it. Like to win single year entire elementary school like life or whatever. It's like a lot. But I guess there's a lot of pressure too. So it's just like they kind of let me just draw whatever I wanted to at that point. But I also did in the auditorium still, like, you know, like, at least around here, you go vote over there. That's where the voting is for this area. I always go back into the school to vote, and I still have 2 paintings hanging in the auditorium over there. One is a JFK, and so another one's like a Picasso like remake thing. But
is it like a weird nostalgia trip going back into your old elementary school?
Yeah, you know, I keep waiting for like the day when I go back in there and they're not there or something, but I'm like, oh, they're still there. This makes no sense.
No, they're gonna love JFK forever.
They probably will.
And he's coming back, so
Picasso's probably safe, so unless he gets, I guess JFK gets canceled somehow, but I think he should have been.
I'm sure there's plenty of dirt.
There's some questionable.
But, you know, the statute of limitations has run out on him, I guess.
Yeah.
So, okay, getting into middle school. Now, I assume you picked up a guitar at some point.
No, you know, that was... Dude, I didn't pick it up then.
You're footballing then at that point, right?
No, not yet. Well, towards the end. towards the end, I never wanted to do that at all. But I'll tell you that in a second why that is. But that's ridiculous. You're gonna laugh. I don't know. What all of us, once MTV kind of came out, and not even just that. I think a lot of music videos like debuted on In Living Color and all kinds of things on television. And I just always was like, oh, music is it, whatever it is about it. My aunt was a musician, and she or an aspiring musician always, but she taught me a couple of things, like on piano. Like that's probably the extent of it through elementary school. But I know music videos, MTV and whatnot is not so much radio and everything else. I mean, music is big in my household, like in general. My family just always been some kind of records, but no, there was some of it was rock. My aunt was really big into that. I think I ended up giving John one of her old records. If she ever watches this, she'd be like, "Why did you do that?" But it was a Descendants record.
Wow.
Yeah. She loved some Rolling Stones records. Woodstock. I think hearing Jimi Hendrix play like the Star Spangled Banner thing, I didn't know what was going on because you can't see it. I didn't have a video of it, but it just sounded like explosions. Crazy what was going on.
Yeah.
I didn't understand the mechanics of the guitar, but in junior high, I started to see like other kids who were into that kind of thing, and I always it's strange, but as much as you would think it wouldn't matter, but all of us having patches on our backpacks, kind of, you could tell who was into what music just from walking through the hallway.
Yeah, it's like the beacon or the lighthouse to the other people to let them know, here I am. I like Primus too.
I gravitated to hanging out with some of the metalhead kids, and just other kids. Like I remember Carl Ficalora. He had a Green Day patch in his bag, Rage Against the Machine, some other ones. But then you knew already, like this guy knows he likes the things that we're watching on TV. So you talk to them about that, and that would get conversation started with different kids. And I also remember, yeah.
And it was on TV, which was the big deal back then.
Yeah.
You turned on MTV and it was just constant in your face.
It was accessible. Yeah, it was there all the time.
If you couldn't have that, you'd have getting ready for school and watching VH1 too. But sometimes you get a couple of good ones, but mostly not.
For people who were too young to remember, MTV and VH1 were so different. In the beginning, VH1 was like the adult contemporary station. Where you would see
Call Me Al.
Yeah, or like Amy Grant.
Sue Studio or something.
Yeah.
I think I saw the Chris Isaac Wicked Game video. That was one of the first videos I saw when I first got cable and I was a kid. And I was like, whoa, I shouldn't be watching this.
Yeah, seemed risque, right?
Yeah.
So many, I think that was the magic of it. But I think, once, certain videos came out, you're like, wow, like Green Day, when I seen that, those first videos, I was like, oh my God, these could be people that we would know making music, or
it wasn't so grandiose.
Yeah, I think that's when I started to realize, oh, maybe because I know my aunt was a musician, but I didn't understand what that really was. But
yeah, this was relatable.
Yeah, other people can play music. We can play music, or however have you. So I started to think okay, maybe. It took me a while to get there, but the fact that the community of music was there through just as kids I think was a big deal too, because we all knew that we all appreciated it. Everybody was excited about their favorite bands or whatever. Nirvana, obviously, and there was some random Offspring video, and I thought that's what the shows were like. I forget what it was. I don't know. They're all moshing like an airplane hangar or something.
I think it's Got to Get Away.
And people weren't. It wasn't Smells Like Teen Spirit. We weren't rocking out in the gymnasium like that. We probably would have wanted to, but
that came later.
Yeah, I don't think I had a total idea of what. Although I always hear the PWAC was down the street from my house.
Yep.
So that's a big thing. I could have rode my bike there and accidentally
seen Fugazi.
Or maybe, maybe Fugazi actually was playing, and I was like, I don't know. Maybe I was taking a car ride somewhere and I could hear noise, but who would know? I wouldn't know. I wasn't unaware that even existed at that time, so it's like,
right. And
I wish it did.
I'm probably going to beat this point like over and over again on this podcast with certain people, but like if you grew up in Lindenhurst and you lean toward anything like alternative in any way, the hardcore and punk scene were going to find you eventually.
Yeah,
it was just so prevalent at that time.
Absolutely. And I think that kind of, it led me to like members of your old band. I remember Derek and Chris. They were really excited about music, more excited than I remember. Those guys were really excited in my classes about music, and like I was like, oh wow, these guys are not only did like they like the same music as me, but they're like talking about how they're like learning, like they're playing guitars or they're learning how to play stuff, you know.
Right.
And I was like, oh wow, like I was like, how do I get a guitar, or what, you know, like I think more over time they started to become like, oh, is this actually a thing that people do, and like. I think it's similar to the drawing. Once you see somebody else do it,
yeah,
then you're like, oh wow, I could do it. So it's the same kind of thing as that, where it's like, okay, these guys can do it, so it must be possible that, like, you know, maybe any of us can do it. I don't know. And I think that era too made it seem that way more so because I guess the grunge era, because the way they made it seem, it was like, you know, these are just regular dudes, like just rock. It didn't always look like they had the best equipment. They had the punk, like, the stickers all over their equipment, and I don't know. I think that made it seem like, I don't know what the word for that is.
Yeah. But and also, like, that was important too because it got you into other bands, seeing the T-shirts they were wearing and seeing the liner notes in the records and like what bands they thanked. That was kind of the rabbit hole. That was kind of like the Spotify radio station of that era, you know? Just kind of like checking them out and seeing what they're into.
I think like some of the bigger ones are like Alternative Nation was huge.
Yeah.
Like being up some insane hour and you get like, what is this? Different. And I think that's when you knew. Like you knew I wasn't a music expert, but I knew that like I like that more than the VH1 in the morning stuff. Like
yeah. All it takes is seeing something different, you know, on TV.
Yeah.
Something that doesn't look the same.
I guess it's the distorted guitar too. It's like brings me there, or the harder drum beats, or I guess people yelling too is the thing. I don't think I guess everyone's more. I mean, I was a shy kid. I didn't really talk that much, but I guess it's that. It's like seeing people actually like have an emotional release or something publicly was you know, everyone tried to be more like, everyone was pretty reserved unless they weren't, you know, when those were pretty rare. I think that was a big part of it. I think it was like other people could go to these concerts and have the same emotional release, like being in the crowd, or and even more.
It's like communicating without having to talk. Like you go to the show and you all look at each other and you are like, we all get it.
Collective sigh of relief.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. I mean, that's huge as a kid, especially if you're an introvert, you know.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was just drawing even now. Like,
yeah,
I would be in class. I wouldn't hardly pay attention to much, but I would just be drawing stuff, you know, in my notebooks and just, I don't know, just observe. I think I was more observing everything.
So when did you finally pick up guitar?
That was high school. Junior. It might have been junior year, or summer before that. Sophomore summer, I guess, somewhere around there. It was because I worked at the pool. I lived next to the town pool here, and well, not only that, my brother, a guy Pat, who's in my band later on down the line, my brother Mike would go play in his cover band, or he would like guest star in his cover band, to sing Rage songs, amongst other things. So they dragged me along, I guess, because I was like a really huge fan of music already. Like they kind of knew that. I was already asking for CDs and this and that every Christmas or birthday or whatever, you know, whatever you can get your hands on. music magazines. But I went to that once again. I saw that somebody I knew was just playing all my favorite songs. I couldn't under it. They played Rage. They played Hendrix too. They played so much stuff. Nirvana,
what was the name of this
obviously,
band?
big Radiohead songs rather. Muff Shaped Ducks.
There you go.
Muff Shaped Ducks at Jam House. So this is my first time to go to Jam House.
Yeah.
I think just going staircase to Jam House was an experience to me back then.
Yes.
What is this world? And then like waiting in the area like before you go into the rooms was like its own thing too. And then you saw all these other people practicing music in there and playing, and you saw different like same types of personalities you would have saw on MTV or.
It smelled like Otto's jacket.
Yeah, it had the smell. You definitely knew. But then people had their own gear, like they had the guitars already, and they're waiting outside with the drumsticks, like tapping on something or whatever, ready to practice. And I think that was huge. That was like, okay, wait a minute. Like it's not. Once I sat in there and watched them play the songs, and I was like, wow, they're playing all these songs, all the songs I know, and that was a big deal. That's the first time I saw guitar pedals or even knew like, okay, these amps sound differently. It didn't sound, and I knew it didn't sound like it does on TV. It sounded crazy. It sounded like super duper loud. I was like, you were like deaf when you left there.
Yeah.
But that was awesome too, because you walked around and you like remembered it. But I remember I asked my brother, only like he sang on a couple of the Rage like covers he did, and he sat back down on the couch like there, with, stank all black couches they had there. Whatever they had there. Yeah. And I was like, how long is that they've been playing guitar? How long has he been doing this? And he's like, oh, Pat's been playing guitar for 4 years. And they were playing every song I knew. So I was like, then I like thought to myself, like, okay, so if I practice every day for 4 years, I guess I could be as good as this guy is, or
But that was like an eternity back then. 4 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know what I thought. I was just like, oh, 4 years, like
it's the entirety of high school. Yeah.
Yeah, if I just start now and I just like practice every single day, then I guess I would. But I still didn't have a guitar yet, though, so I still was like on the fence. But I worked at the town pool. Sean Dillon worked there.
Kind of an infamous crew that worked at that pool.
Yeah,
back in the day.
There's this one guy, Dan. I forget his last name. I can't remember. He was from Florida, but he was into all the music too. So he was like the pool guy. He had to maintain like all the chemicals in the pool, the chlorine levels and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I lived next door to the pool, so I would be the first one there. And I got to talking to him. We'd go into the first, but he played guitar. He brought his guitar to work, and because after the pool was set up, we would just hang out there, and he'd be like playing the guitar, and I was like, wow, this guy plays guitar too. Like, what is this? It's everywhere. And he turned me on to a whole bunch of stuff too. Like what do you listen to? Suicidal Tendencies, No Effects, MXPX, Unwritten Law, Pennywise. Pennywise is actually the first thing that I learned how to play. He taught me how to play Bro Hymn.
Nice.
Whoa.
That song, so I was like, and I guess that's a good place to start because it was just like a simple, like repetitive guitar line that.
That's also like the next step up in like the punk education. You start with Green Day and Rancid, and then you go for like the Epitaph and Fat bands like Pennywise and NoFX, and then if you choose, you go even deeper from there.
Yeah,
so you were on level 2 at that point.
Oh, and Blink he had also.
Blink, yeah.
I remember he was just that was super big for me. Eventually, that was my first job, so eventually I had money, and like I went to Musicland with the money on break. But we weren't even on break. I think we were actually punched in. But I went with him there, like while we were still at work, with money from that job, and I was like, wow, like I have enough. Like, what do I have enough for? And he kind of guided me through it, like, okay, like you could get this, that, and the other. I ended up getting like a Squier Strat, like a Fender Strat. I mean, everyone a lot of the bands I liked, I always saw like I didn't know anything about it, but it was the right shape or I didn't know what it was. Little I know, like the one I'm getting doesn't have a humbucker in it, or what is a humbucker? I don't know. And that was rough, man. I just had the guitar, and I went home with it, and I was like, what do I
now what?
What do you even do with this thing? He told me I needed a tuner and some picks, but I had no amp. So I had an electric guitar, a tuner, and some picks, and that's it. Like I didn't even know. Like I didn't even. Then I had a cable. I bought a cable to plug into the tuner.
Right.
And that's all I had. So I'm strumming on an electric guitar. It's not making any noise.
But perfectly in tune.
It doesn't sound. Yeah, it's perfect. Yeah. No, it wasn't perfectly in tune. That's a horrible. This is a horrible story. Is that I ended up breaking a string trying to tune it. Like I didn't know how to tune it, so I just kept tuning it and tuning it and tuning it.
Right.
And it just broke off, and I was like mortified. I was like, oh my god! I think I spent like $209 or something altogether. It's for the Squire.
It's a bargain today. It'd be like $500 now or something like that.
Yeah, and it was like they told me it was pretty good because it was like a Japanese made Squire.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I broke it, and I was like, I don't even know what to do. And like I went to Musicland. I think I had my brother somebody took me, and like I just walk in there with it broken. And I'm like, what do I do? And they're like, oh, you broke a string. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but like, how do I fix it? It's broken. And then I learned, oh, you have to like know which strings are on there and like what gauges they are and how it works. And the guy showed me there on the counter, like, this is how you change the like guitar string. And it's like, I guess they didn't have to do that, but they did. Like, this is how it works. This is how you use the tuner and whatnot. And that was it. And I don't know why I didn't consult with the guy at the pool. I guess I wasn't ready to do that with Dan. But I started bringing it to work with me at the town pool. And he taught me the basics I needed, really. He taught me open chords. He taught me minor and major pentatonic scale and how to do bar chords and like how to change like a bar chord, power chords, and minor and major, like stuff like that. He wrote it down on like paper for me. Well, the fact that he had that kind of knowledge to begin with. Yeah.
People pay good money for lessons like that now.
Yeah, so I didn't, and we would just sit there at the pool every day, and I would just like practice with him, which is so weird because we're practicing on guitars that aren't even plugged in. Like later on, I got an amp, and it's weird because I went from not knowing anything to practicing every day like that I could all the time to playing shows like quick, like after that, probably like a year, and I played the Wrong Way In, which is Amityville Music Hall now. I think I played with Group 86. I don't think you guys played. I don't remember if you did.
I think they did, though, and I can picture the flyer that had Endless Mike from Pete on it, and there's the Waiting Process, Group 86, the Hall Monitors, and someone else.
I think it was. I think you guys did play, because I remember you practicing. You were playing, Vito, on a. You weren't playing, but you had a drum pad, and like it looked like a metronome or something. Now that I'm older, I don't know what it was. You had some kind of electronic looking thing next to you, and you were tapping on that. So I was like, oh, this guy knows what he's doing. But so I came in there with like my garbage practice amp, my Japanese Squire, and I faced the window. I couldn't even face the people and play. I was just like, I can't even do it. I couldn't. We played a cover of Just What I Needed, Sweater Song.
Also, just for reference, the Wrong Way In is now Amityville Music Hall. It's the same club.
Yeah, randomly, it just happens to be the same.
Yeah,
it exists, but it still does. Somehow.
One of the handful of places that survived on Long Island through numerous ownerships and whatnot.
Which is amazing.
But it was the Wrong Way In back in the day. And was that okay? So what band was that?
We were the Hall Monitors then.
The Hall Monitors, okay.
I don't know why we called it that. But we knew already that was not a good name. Not that I moved on to better band names, but there's a that's a funny story too. But seeing like other people. I mean, this after we got out of junior high and we were in high school, and I finally had the guitar and whatnot. It was still kind of a similar thing. Like you knew which kids liked what in high school, which bands were big and whatnot. And people would trade. I traded CDs with people, and John Kelly I traded a lot of CDs with, and Derek. And like I guess knowing what people's musical tastes were was a big deal too. So
yeah.
And I was obsessed with like I remember being obsessed with anime like a lot, like really bad. I still am. But I remember Chris Baldwin had a Ranma 1/2 like shirt on. He was in my gym class, and I didn't know what it was, but it said Glassjaw on it. And I talked to the guy. I was like, "Oh, that's so cool! You have Ranma on your shirt or whatever." And it ended up being like Glassjaw's like a big band.
Yeah.
Where they were starting out or whatever, but like he's like, "Oh, it's my band," and like. Now you look back on it, you're like, what is, makes no sense. So I guess anime led me, the anime shirt led me to that discovery. And then, he knew, like everybody else, he knew a lot of people too. So then like everybody was kind of strangely connected. You guys were connected to it. I think I met you guys after, but I know when I really, really believed that it was like a thing is we went to those shows at Life Team. Where you guys played, Waiting Process played.
So Life Team was the church youth group of OLPH, the place where I went to school, the Catholic church in town, and they would do what was called the Life Team Coffee House, in just like an empty office across the street, and they would have bands play. And yeah, we would just pack the room out, and it was like our first rock star experience, essentially. People breaking down the door to come in to see us at the Life Team Coffee House.
We were all stacked out there, and I think that's where I met that's when I met almost everyone that I was going to know without even knowing who they were yet. Like they were people at all of the shows. Everyone who was out waiting outside there for you guys to play were the same people. I still know most of those people now. I mean, and the idea of I know there was a touring band. I still have the CD somewhere. They were called Pint Size.
Right, Don Fury produced them or something like that.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
But I was like, I remember saying like, oh my god, like my friends are playing and they're really good, and these guys came, and they're really good. We ended up getting to play a show there eventually too, which we kind of wrecked the place. We kind of messed it up, But I remember on one of the bigger ones for me was Paula's song that you guys had. So it was like, I remember James was like screaming on that one. And I was just like, this is like the thing in the world. Like, this is it. Like we've hit it. These aren't even covers anymore. Like, cause everything, because covers were cool and whatnot, but that was like,
these dudes are fucking heavy.
These guys made their own. Yeah, they made their own. And Pint Size too, like those guys, that was their own songs. And like you went home with the CD and you're like, this is sick. And you guys had a cassette and ended up having that.
Having not gone to shows at the PWAC, like that's as close as we had gotten to, like a local music scene at that point.
Yeah.
I personally didn't go to the PWAC ever. I never went to shows at Dr. Shea's, but that's where a lot of people in Lindenhurst cut their teeth going to punk and hardcore shows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. I mean, that's where all of us in the waiting process, we started out there. But obviously, we were kids, and it felt like we weren't cool enough to be a part of that. I mean, especially the PWAC. Everyone was in their 20s who was playing there and who ran the place, and it was just kind of like we would never be able to work our way into that. So we just kind of created our own thing in Lindenhurst.
And I think that was big though. That was kind of the start of like talking to all of you guys and lots of people that we all mutually know. And and started going to shows.
I think that's gone on since then in succession. You know what I mean? From the Silent Majorities to the You Guys to the Us to the Somerset Throwers to, you know.
Backtrack and all that. Yeah.
And McCall's Catering Hall, I think it was called. That was
the Long Island Zoo.
Long Island Zoo. That was huge for me. That was like the next level for it for me. That's when I like first saw the Movie Life, and they seemed to play every single show that was there. I think
that was like the year and a half of the Movie Life where they played every show. On
I think they did. I think I swear, like every time like there was bands coming, like they were there. So I knew Movie Life was for sure. But I mean, everything came through there at one point. Dashboard Confessional guy.
Yep.
He drove up in his car or something to play there, and he wasn't popular or famous yet or whatever. But Get Up Kids were there to watch their friends' band. The Anniversary played there. But I remember I bumped into the bassist from the Get Up Kids in the crowd. Like this guy walked into me, and I turned around. And I was like, "Wait a minute, that's the guy from like what's going on?" Yeah. And they're like, "Oh, he's like dating the girl from the keyboard player girl." You're like, what? Like then it was kind of weird because then it was like the bands we're listening to were like really like they were like walking around next to us. It was like it was no longer separated. Like these people are like movie stars on TV.
Yeah,
you know, they were like you could see their music videos, but they were also in your local town, like in like a catering hall, basically.
Yeah.
And they would hang out in the parking lot or talk to you at a merch table. I didn't know what a merch table was, but people are selling their own T-shirts and CDs, and that was huge. That was like, I don't even know what to say about that. I saw so much stuff come through there, and that was probably my first. I saw everybody from school there, so the same people that we like talked to in school about the music we like, they're all pouring in there too. So it was kind of like, let me get dropped off. Let me weird too, because we all made it to these same places, but we didn't have cell phones or internet to like. It was just word of mouth was enough. I think, back then.
It's amazing. It's amazing to think now, like, how did we do this without the internet? Because we're all so attached to it now.
Printed out MapQuest directions.
Oh God, I was never.
But
good
it was kind of awesome in a way. It was kind of like almost like Fight Club. I don't know what it is.
But like, absolutely, yeah.
You knew when you went back to school, like who went to the show and who didn't go to the shows, and it was kind of like you saw each other in the hallway, and you're like, yeah, you were there too.
You got the nod, yeah.
So with that said, like as all of our collective times at high school ends, there is a large explosion and boom in that kind of music being big, and there being more shows and all that sort of stuff. Where does drawing fit in with you at that time? Let's say circa 2000, 2001.
I kept drawing. I still was winning awards through junior high. I think the end of that was like I won a solar car race for the sun, like design contest. That was probably the height of my weird like entering school contest thing. But I was still drawing through. I think drawing connected me even more so with musician type people as well, because it's like, in a way, it's connected to the same thing. Like Chris Baldwin's like Glasgow shirt had the anime on. People were like into that. We didn't know what that was. It was just blockbuster Japanese animation movies you could get, but it was a big thing too. I felt like that went along with the same premise of like the MTV late night Eon Flux, the Max, like just like I guess edgy like animation was big for everyone.
You kind of discovered that there was an underground quote unquote to that as well.
Yeah.
Like there's a subculture to everything, and that's also exciting. That like the other thing I'm into as well has like this kind of grassroots thing going on. Yeah.
Liquid Television, that's what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so then it was kind of like in my mind the two were connected, like music and art were like. Well, and some people had animated music videos. Some people had or even like Tool had like stop motion animation, and Beavis and Butthead was huge to me.
Yeah.
And that was an animated show that also connected to it. But a lot of, like, me and Derek were kind of friends because of that in a way too. I used to draw aliens in his I don't know why, I would draw aliens in his yearbook since like junior high all the way. And everyone liked the aliens, so they're like, "Oh, draw one in mine, or draw one in my notebook." I just kept drawing aliens all over stuff. Why was it aliens? I don't know. I guess we were all kind of like wondering if I don't know. I guess aliens were real or whatnot. As kids, like,
the X-Files. Yeah.
Like, we had just had TV versions of that, and
yeah,
like, oh, you know about the mysterious, like, the mysteries, you know. It's kind of like another thing. So it's kind of like, oh, like you watched that late night, whatever it was you weren't supposed to be watching.
Yeah. Kind of the dark web before.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Unsolved mysteries or whatever, you know, like. I mean, I think that stuff. I think that's what connected it to it. So I mean, I kept drawing all the way through that, and I also noticed too that a lot of the, like, the underground music and stuff, it all had interesting art too. The flyers had interesting, like, art on them, and I felt like they went hand in hand in a way.
Yeah, and every promoter had their own style too. You knew, like, when it was an Artie Philly flyer or, like, you know, an Anthony Race flyer, because they kind of had their own vibe to it. So, like, the flyer making was kind of an art in itself.
Absolutely.
Within the art, you
know. I remember I got Photoshop too. Like, we were lucky to have, like, all those computer classes in Lindenhurst High School. So it's like, but I was really lucky because one of the art teachers, Mrs. Johnson, like, just thought I was good at art, and she just gave me a copy of Photoshop. I'm sure that you weren't allowed to do that. I don't think you're supposed to give out, like, software with key code.
Yeah, the site license copy, whatever that the district paid for.
Like, I had Photoshop, like, before anyone had Photoshop. Like, so I had already been using it. I don't even know what year that was. I guess probably sophomore year I already had a copy of Photoshop.
Do you remember what version it was?
No. I think, I don't know, were we still using XP then?
No.
Was that XP or Windows 95?
Windows 98.
Is Windows 95 the Weezer video one?
That is the one that came with Media Player, yeah.
I think it was one of them. That was a treasure in itself. But
I feel like 98 was out, but the schools still ran on 95.
I think 98 was out. But I had it before that, though. I don't know. I just had Photoshop way early. So that went with it too, because then it's like, oh, graphic design. Like, you could see the connection between, like, the smaller records, like everyone's making the CD covers and whatnot, and, like, how you could just make it with that program. It didn't look great. I didn't even know if I had a digital camera yet, but it was like, you could assemble some kind of clip art in some kind of way and it looked like, I don't know, it looked like a mineral cover or something, you know.
I was always impressed when I ended up playing in a band with you how good our shit looked, you know, from you designing it. I was like, whoa.
No, it's huge having an artist in the band.
Yeah,
for sure.
You need at least one artist in a band.
Yeah.
I think, and you too. I mean, John was good at that stuff too, early on. Like, he understood, like, the aesthetic for, like, the
you just use as many fonts as you can.
I think he even made those flyers for the what do you call them?
The Waiting Process Group 86 show. Yeah. If you look, there's a different font on every line.
Yeah, Metal Fest. Zero metal bands on this Metal Fest.
I have
that. I have the Metallica font, so I had to use it.
But so I mean, that was the thing too. Besides studio arts, like, that was the thing. Graphic design started to become a thing where you're like, okay, there's, like, a digital side to art, and that's how you can. Once again, it was like, we can make the things that they use to, like, sell products to us, like, you know, like,
it seemed more practical.
Yeah. Once we got to see how that was done, then I was like, I could do this too. And it's like, I think it became like the combination of all of those things, just kind of, even now, like, I try to stay up to date with everything, but I was lucky to have people who believed in me. With Miss Dopkins in elementary school, with Mr. Honorado, I guess, in
junior high, yeah.
He really believed in me too.
Shout out that big block letter thing we had to make.
I always was lucky to have that kind of support from like my teachers, and my family really supported it the whole time. That's a big thing too.
Huge.
Yeah, because I don't think, yeah, they really like made sure like if I was interested in something, they would like be sure to get me art supplies or whatever it is to feed my like hobby. It wasn't really, I mean, that was already my passion since forever.
It's also good to have something, to keep your kid where you can see him and
Yeah,
not
that's
out
true.
on the streets. So
I
it's
was
like,
I was
okay, this is
I
a
was
positive thing. We can support this. Yeah.
I was the least amount of trouble for sure.
Yeah.
Like, oh, he's happy with like comic books, and you just give him paper and pencils and stuff, and he's good. And like,
All right.
and like, oh, he's just gonna go in the room and draw for like fun. This goes down. Like, I guess he's good. Like,
It's low maintenance. Yeah.
but yeah,
So
it was a really like, I think art for me more than anything has always been like it's like a form of meditation in a way. It's like you can always just go to that. You can always just sit there and think about something and express yourself on paper,
getting
and it
this
doesn't cost much. I think the music stuff's the same way. Like once, I mean, you have to get the equipment first. Once you have it, like it doesn't cost you anything to write the songs. It doesn't cost you anything to express yourself through the music or whatever it is. You just have to be able to. You have to dedicate the time to it. But I mean, anyone can do it.
Yeah.
I think that's a big part of it.
So around the turn of the century, I guess you can say, the hall monitors evolve into Milwaukee Skyrocket.
Yep, that's true.
And I guess you
That's
guys get a
actually
little bit more serious about music at that point.
Yeah, but I got a funny story behind the name. Was I don't even know why it makes any sense, but we're waiting outside of Ground Zero to I think it was Taking Back Sunday, Blood Red. I think it was. I remember everybody like it seemed further. Like, do you guys know where Ground Zero actually was?
Belmore.
Newbridge Road, Belmore. Yep.
You know, in my mind, it felt like it was 9 towns over. I don't know. Like just riding there. I think I rode there with John Kelly.
There was one of the further venues, yeah, from where we live.
It felt like we were going there. It felt like we're doing some forbidden act.
There's a lot of lights on
outside
Sunrise.
there.
It takes a bit.
Yeah, but now that like you're like older, it's like not that far.
I was fucking 10 minutes away.
Yeah, it seemed like it was 100 like miles away or something. I don't know. But I was sitting out there with Matt Tutrone. He's like, somebody should have a band that has Milwaukee in it. That's what he's. I don't know why we were talking about this randomly. He thought that. And I was like, oh, I guess you're right. And it was like he's like maybe like Milwaukee Drag or something. He said. And I didn't know what that was either. But I know this is probably. I think I was working at Borders by this point. I was working at Borders Bookstore, but I remember looking at Braid CDs, and I think I didn't even know who Braid was at that time. I just knew that I liked the artwork on the cover for the CD I had, and one of the song titles was Milwaukee Skyrocket on there, and I really liked that song on there too. And I was like, this is weird. I really love the song, and it also has Milwaukee in it. And I was like, wait a minute, this is it. This is the Milwaukee band name. Why that was the thing, but
yeah. And Matt Tutrone was the catalyst to that.
He was actually the catalyst to that happening.
Interesting.
He thought a band should be called Milwaukee something, and then this band had that in it, which seems impossible. But it ended up. I found out. I think it was like a guy who tested motorcycles. You hear that noise? My dog is chewing on a bone next to me. But
I didn't even hear it.
He's chewing on like a Nyla bone. But that was a big thing. I mean, just discovering that band at all. And then I was like, I didn't know anything about copywriting it or anything, but we didn't even do it. It was 3 words on there as a song title. We did it as 2 words, like connected. But it was like, I think it had nothing to do with actual skyrockets. I think it was a guy who tested like motorcycles in the desert at high speed or something strange. Looking it up for later on down the line, but
Desert of Milwaukee.
But you're right. We did get more serious than the home monitor stuff. I think then we kind of moved away from the guy Pat I told you who I saw play, who made me believe I could play guitar in 4 years, whatever. He ended up not wanting to be in the cover band because he didn't want to play covers anymore. He wanted to make original stuff too, and that's what I was trying to do with my brother Mike. We were just writing. He had a bass at the time. He was like trying to learn bass. I was trying to learn guitar, and we were just like trying to learn songs and play them. I think we were like, it was strangely enough, we were like learning Buddy Holly songs for some reason, and like weird CDs, like things that sounded simpler. And then once you got hold of the simpler stuff, you can learn more of like the complicated stuff. And we started writing songs, and he joined our band, so that was weird. I was like, the guy who I've been trying to like chase on my guitar skills, he's like in my band now. It made no sense. And I was writing the songs, and I didn't even know how to write songs yet. I just knew that I could move the bar chords around, and it sounded similar to my records I liked, you know. And then I guess from there, it's like we started getting better equipment. I think we started to realize what good equipment was and what bad equipment was. I don't know. You guys had pretty good equipment back then, at least in like the spectrum of what everyone had.
That was my always thought. Like the times I got to fuck around on your drum kit, or we got to use your shit, we were like, whoa, this is some pro dog shit.
I remember at Ground Zero, the waiting process playing, I think with Eddie Raz's old band, Runner Up. And we're setting up, and Eddie's standing there, and he goes, "Man, you kids must be rich. You guys have such good gear." We're like, "No, none of us are rich. Like, you know, James worked 2 jobs, freaking, you know." Well, I traded in my old kit for the DW kit. You know, we all none of us
the gear.
Rich.
That was the move. You just traded up. You got some shit, you know? And kept on trading up.
Yeah,
but bought everything used. Maybe not drum wise, but I know James got his head from Tommy from Hot Mop, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, you figure it out. Like, you can get good gear for not full price. We figured that out early. And, you know, it makes a good impression with a bunch of teenagers coming through with professional equipment.
I think that was definitely a big deal. I mean, I learned a lot just from watching that. Like, I'd be like, okay, well, what's Derek using to make these sounds on these songs? And I look down. I think it was like a Boss. He had a Boss multiprocessor in the beginning, like guitar effects processor.
Yep.
I think it was the ME30, Boss ME30 or something. I think it was. But it was like, I was like, this thing makes all kinds of different sounds. Like, I had one pedal at first. I had a Boss chorus pedal. And like, I didn't know the first thing about the equipment.
I remember Pat was all about those Zoom pedals, those little processors with the 2 buttons on them.
I ended up getting one of those too, a 2-button one like that.
Cheap.
Yeah, it was like $100. I guess that's not that cheap now if you can look back.
No, but 10 noises for $100. Come on.
Yeah, it was cheap because it was all combined in the one thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember thinking it was like magic. I was like, oh, how do you do this? And then like, Musicland was a really big deal because we were lucky to have that just sitting in the middle of town like that. I didn't really realize
the last like great basket of Musicland before it turns to Music and Arts and is a fucking waste of space.
Yeah, just a little sliver of a store now that has no inventory.
Because it had the Dream equipment like hanging on the wall. Like you could walk in there, and it was there. It was like, oh, there's like the guitar from the catalog that I can't afford ever. Like
there's a $4,000 PRS just fucking hanging there.
You could see it, and if you couldn't see that, there was so much good used stuff in there. Didn't know how to play good at all. Like they probably like, please, guys, can you stop? Just back on some bar chords in the middle of the place. Like, and if you didn't have your tuner, so you're just like trying to tune by ear the best you could, and just like turn the thing up way too loud. Probably just blast out Musicland, and there were other people in there doing it too. And I think we'd all see each other in passing in there too. Somebody was in there for something like, I need strings for my show, or I need new picks, or
we were all practicing at the same time, so we'd be like, oh, let's go to fucking Taco Bell and Musicland and whatever.
Yeah, it was a whole thing, like between Taco Bell, definitely Taco Bell,
Dare Studios was some of the best times of my life.
Studios, yep. Jam House too sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
The music studio thing kept moving around because I don't know what the deal is with that, but I think it was the prices. I think.
But it was also like you would call them when they weren't open, and they would call you back to confirm that you had a time or some shit like that. So they wouldn't always call you back. So you'd all be banking and have practice, and then the Dare guy would just never call you back. So we just went to Taco Bell instead.
So bad. If you think about how crazy that was. I mean, we practiced sometimes here at my house.
For a very long time, we did.
One of my first practices was like in my old bedroom. Like, we couldn't even fit the stuff in there. I don't know what we were doing. But actually, one of our song titles is actually named after sitting in Taco Bell. First Aid for Choking is actually from sitting in Taco Bell looking at the
seeing that sign there. Yeah.
And it was like, that was like our ghetto Paula song, though. It was like we were like hoping it could do something like what you guys were doing. Like, we could probably do
people don't know this, but Paula Ghost wrote that song. That's not true.
I've heard that.
Yeah, she wrote the lyrics. Mm. Yeah.
On these, I hope you choke.
And I think it was simply because like Chris had nothing at one practice, and we had the song basically written, and he was just kind of like.
It seems like it could have been one of the songs that was written in like 5 minutes, and like, all right, you got anything?
Chris, what do you got? He's like, no, I put here, and Paula just happened to be there, and she's like, okay, I'm gonna scribble, scribble some stuff in your book.
Here's some suicide-y stuff.
But yeah, like I don't know, I thought that was like the coolest thing. I was like, we need to have one like that. We had like other songs, but that would have the drawing part and like the breakdown part, and I think it was just parts to me then.
Well, that started to become a thing at that era. Like, let's put a hardcore part in a pop punk song. Mm-hmm. Which became huge. It still is.
Yeah, it still is.
And but at that point, that was like a novel thing to do.
So we record like a self-recorded demo on a Tascam 4-track at Pat's house. And we eventually go to Mike Sapone's studio to record the second demo, I guess it would be, right?
Which probably was our best decision, yeah.
Yeah. That's post Taking Back Sunday demo, I guess. Hot off the heels of that, we were like, we want that.
Yeah, we want to go to that place. And we've come to find out it wasn't really that inaccessible to do. You just called the guy and he was like, and I thought it was like, wow, it's gonna be some crazy like studio, but it was like,
whoa, he's got a guitar pod.
No, but when we get there, it's like pull around back, and I was like, where is it? It's like it's a house, and
it's down the basement steps.
Then you went down the basement steps to the guy's house, and it was like, but it was actually really cool once you were down there. But you're like, what did we walk into? Like, how much an hour? What are we?
What do you want from Taco Bell?
We ended up getting him Taco Bell.
Like every day, yeah.
Taco Bell figures in deep to this situation.
It really does.
And who knew, man? Who knew like Mexican like fast food?
I could have guessed.
I don't know how it connects, but I guess it connects to those Blink-182 songs, though. I guess in a way. We're talking about burritos.
Sure.
Yeah.
So Sublime.
So simultaneously, while this is going on, this is 2000, 2001. You started SVA.
Yeah, I started 2001. Yeah.
And how does I think something happened around September 10th of 2001 that might have fucked up your school year.
Yeah, that changed everyone's lives. September 11th. What was crazy is that I had a video camera by this time, and I always brought my video camera to school with me. And that's the one day I didn't bring it. I didn't charge the batteries for whatever reason. And I remember I went to grab it to take it with me, and I was like, I didn't charge the thing. I'm just going to leave it. I mean, it's probably better I didn't film stuff like that. But, that changed everything. I mean, art school was already cool, and like, that was an eye-opening experience to me. Like, first year there, music once again got me. I didn't know anyone at art school, obviously. No one else I knew was going there with me. But Weezer had got back together. I think it was like that year before that.
The Green Album, right?
I wore the Stone. We went to see him at the Stone Pony in New Jersey, and I wore like the shirt from the show there, and like everybody was trying to talk to me all at one time. It was really weird. I was like, all the kids in like, we were like in our orientation day, and they're like, oh, you went to the show, like, and it was like, oh wow, like I guess everybody here, like, or a lot of these kids here, like they like Weezer or whatever, And it's just like, wow. And like, I wish I went, like, blah blah blah, but like, so then I had the music like connection there too, and this is even before the like September 11th stuff, but the band Saves the Day. The bass player, Eben, I think that's how you say it.
Yeah.
I think we had already seen them play the swing set, which I think is, I think it's still a bar.
It's the Nutty Irishman, if that's still a bar.
I think saw them play the swing set.
There might be something else now.
Right.
I think that's where I saw the Glass Show
record release.
Record release
too. And but yeah, I went to school with the bass player's girlfriend at SVA too. So I was like even stranger. I was like, oh, she's the girl from the music video.
Yeah.
And he went on one of our like art field trips too. So like once again, it was like, oh, the things that we're connected to are really like regular people. They're like right here, you know, like just like we are in our school with our scene. Their scene is like attached to the college I go to somehow. Like it's just like it's everywhere. It's almost like you said before. It's like if you're into the same things, you're gonna find each other.
Yeah, it finds you. It's
yeah, just like the emo, punk, hardcore, like all.
You ended up taking me to see The Whitest Kids You Know at that time at some sort of theater at SVA, right?
Yeah, I went to school with those kids too. Rest in peace.
Yeah, that guy passed away. Insane.
Yeah. And I mean, we all thought they were like, you know what's strange about that? When I moved to California later in life, and I went to school with him at SVA, I ended up seeing him again at a movie opening at the indie theater I worked at in Berkeley, California, for a movie Miss March. And I was like, oh my god! I was like, went to SVA with you. It's just like so crazy. Like certain, it's like I don't know what you call that. I don't know if it's fate or whatever it is, but like we all gravitated towards the
serendipity, right?
Yeah, I don't know what it is. It's like just like we all like the same music. We found each other. Like even like other sides of like the country, you still find each other. It's like even with like a huge gap in years, it's still kind of like connected. Even us talking right now. But yeah, September 11th, I was there for that, and I was actually drawing a nude model that day, like when it happened.
That's not really funny.
I remember we saw what was happening, or I guess we heard it. I don't know how we all heard about it, but we all walked over to the window, and I still remember to this day because the nude model like didn't put her clothes back on. She was just like wearing combat boots, naked, staring out the window with the rest of us, and like we weren't even paying attention to her being naked anymore because it was like a plane like had crashed into these buildings, and probably like 5 minutes, not even like they let school out immediately. You know, like we're done, like school's done for like the day, it's done. We went down to the street. It was just like mayhem. And as the fire alarm goes off, can you guys hear that?
No.
Really weird. It's going off.
How long were you stuck in the city before getting able to get back to Lindenhurst?
For hours. I did meet a face I knew, Heather Sundquist. She was going to FIT, I think. And I recognized her in the crowd. We were all waiting at not Times Square, at Penn Station rather. Everyone was trying to like huddle around the same, what's it called, phone booth, because you needed to call. Yeah, call home. And I was like, I know you, and like it was like, oh, so we like, she met my art school friends, I met her like art school friends, and we were just like hanging out waiting. Like, at least it was somebody like to like, bring the situation to. It seemed less insane. It seemed less crazy at that point. I was like, oh, I know people here who are here, you know.
Yeah, at least someone else is going through this with me. I'm not alone.
We're just waiting for them to because they wouldn't let the trains leave the city, and it's like everyone was kind of like debating what that meant or what it was, or if something else was going to happen. This plane happened in that time period while I'm waiting at Penn Station. So that was crazy. But what's weirder about the art school thing is somehow or another I had met this girl in a chat room, but also like a music chat room. And like, oh, like I don't know, I talked to her a lot. And she's like, you want to meet up and like hang out one day? And like people are like, well, Phil, you're probably gonna get like murdered or something, you know. But I met up with this girl randomly, and because she liked all the same music and stuff, and like, okay, let's just do it. What could happen here? We met it in the place where people were or whatever. like, I'll have the Jack Skellington hat on. So I was like looking for some random girl with Jack Skellington hat. Like, I found the girl, and like she was a real person, and she was like who she said she was or whatever. But through that, randomly, she was friends with other bands. She was dating the drummer in
Most Precious Blood. I remember
Most
this.
Blood.
Yeah.
And I started talking to her and hanging out and stuff, and then like she invited me to shows. I went to Most Precious Blood with why am I having a brain freeze here? It's who I actually enjoyed on the show too.
Converge, right?
Converge, that's right.
That Staten Island house show or something.
It was in the Most Precious Blood drummer's basement with Converge. It was like super.
Converge has a DVD, and there's footage from this show on that DVD.
Exactly. And speaking of boilers, it was like right next to a boiler or something like. Like it was like the basement show, you know. But through that, I don't know. And I guess because we had our little Sapone demo, she had the demo. I gave the demo to her, and then her friend Angel heard the demo, who was A&R guy for Victory Records at the time. And I think this is probably around the time that Taking Back Sunday was signed to them.
For sure.
I think we all knew who they were. And then he wanted to he really liked the music, and he was talking about how he wanted like we could possibly sign with them or whatever. So then it was like, oh, now we have like this industry connect guy. But it wasn't like that simple. It was kind of like, oh, we want you to like see like that you have a turnout at your shows, and you really like, I don't even know which song it was. It's like, is it possible for you guys to like write an album that's like a whole like a full album like based off of like 2 of our songs? I forget. It's like more of our punky like songs. And I thought that. I mean, I'm an art school student, so I'm like, this is not good. Like, this is wrong. Like, you know.
So they kind of picked out the hits from the demo, and we're like, write more of those.
Yeah, it was kind of like, can you guys write like 13 of these?
Right.
I eventually met this guy doing merch for the reunion show. He took us out to dinner ahead of time before their album came out, because I guess he signed them as well. But they were playing the North Six that night, if you remember the North Six, before the Music Hall of Williamsburg was the Music Hall of Williamsburg.
Which is crazy, because, I mean, that was like our version of the signing sprees that we heard about in the past, you know, like this is like, this is our weird, smaller version of like a Seattle, like, grunge thing, I guess. So they just was like, it was out there. But I do recall, like, there was somewhat of a backlash. Like, people, like, were getting mad at us as a band at that point. They were like, no, like, they're getting, like, attention from some record label. Like, they're, like, you know? I don't know if it was like I don't know what you would call it, but I think that's when I started to notice that there was a little bit of a toxic element in the scene.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it got so popular that it wasn't all about everyone who really liked music and who were really I don't know, because we all loved it the entire time. Like we were talking about before, like these are the same kids talking about from junior high to Long Island Zoo to other, like, to Ground Zero and so on and so forth. And like this wasn't the same. It was big enough now that like it was leaking into random people in the crowds, you know.
Yes.
I think it started to morph into some other thing, which was good though, because in one way we were like, everyone was happy because like the shows were packed out. So it was like that's what you wanted. That's what you always like dreamed would happen, you know.
Right.
Like, yeah. Although we had some pretty cool, like the Diamond shows. I don't know if you guys remember those, but those.
Oh yeah, of course.
Those are some crowded shows. Like in my mind, like that was like a height. Like we always had another height. Like, oh, like that was a huge show we played, but really, like, it's nothing compared to like playing like a stadium or whatever it is. But to us, it was like
playing to 100 people in a crammed place in your hometown is just as cool at that point, you know.
Yeah, so sick. Or seeing you guys play, like you guys played Long Island Zoo too.
Yeah.
Waiting process, and I remember like I was like, wow, they're playing like on the same stage where everybody else is playing. Like this is where like
they're playing where the Minor Dimension is playing. Whoa.
Or you know whoever, like we saw Hot Rod Circuit there. Yeah. They figured in big to me too, because like I kept seeing them over and over again. I saw them Hot Rod Circuit play at Long Island Zoo.
They might as well have been a Long Island band in that era, and I think they were in Connecticut at that time, but they were playing with the Movie Life basically every other weekend on Long Island for a year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah, it felt like it was like they were always around. And I saw them play Midtown, Brand New, one of their early shows, Hot Rod Circuit, someone else, but it was at some place in Babylon. I don't remember what it was. Where it was. It was near the train
American
station.
Legion.
The American Legion, probably, yeah.
Like by the high school. That all tracks.
That was a big show. That's another huge show. The Ethical Humanist Center shows were big for me too. That blew my too. So we saw bands like Newfound Glory played one of them with
the movie Life.
I think Alkaline Trio.
That Alkaline Trio, Brand New, and
Taking Back Sunday.
Yeah, that was that show.
And I was like, what is this? Like now it's really mixing with like stuff like Warped Tour type stuff at this
National
time.
touring acts, coming through.
Yeah. And I was just like, wow, now it's really like I think it kept getting smaller and smaller like all the time where I felt like everything was touching. Like why are all these guys at this show walking around like right next to you? Or like Taking Back Sunday was playing with like Thursday, and it just kept getting more and like bigger and bigger to me. But like I don't know, all that stuff was really huge to me, like as far as music goes. I can't not mention on the Mighty Princes either. That was when you guys played with them.
Yeah.
We went all the way out to I think it was Mount Sinai.
Mod Center.
The Mod Center, yeah.
That was huge. I was like, what? Like there was really like wasn't really any people there, and that stood out to me as something like that I kept with me through like my bands and stuff. Was like, even though it wasn't really crowded like the other shows. Like these guys were going like off the wall crazy, and you guys were too. Everyone was going crazy. Like it was like put on the best show, even if there's like no one there. And I think that's what was like something like that I kept with me. Like we tried to always like go crazy when we played or like put on a show of some kind, because it was like I always remember like how that was for like these people were going nuts. It was real. It wasn't.
You guys
like,
definitely had like the at the drive-in vibe when you played, swinging their guitars around.
I pardon the phrase, but Taking Black Sunday also got thrown.
Was that okay?
Yeah. I mean, like that was definitely influential to me. I mean, before At the Drive-In or any of that stuff, it was more seeing Atma. It was like these guys are crazy, and this guy's going crazy. Like they're leaving, like in sports, and you leave it all on the court or whatever. It's the same kind of thing, like all on the field. Like these guys are going like.
And like back to the Seattle thing, like there are so many parallels to them in Nirvana, in a way.
Oh, yeah,
like
there was.
how they ushered in kind of like that generation of bands, and how
both of their drummers love Dave Grohl.
Yes. And Jay was also kind of like a Cobain-esque figure.
Yeah, he had the hair and the look
like,
for sure.
It was like this like hometown Cobain was here or something. Like it was like
totally.
I was like, is this like? It didn't seem real to me. I was like, wow, this guy's like for real. And like, I don't know. Even at the Ethical Humanist Center, like I remember buying one of their CDs randomly, like in the like. I don't know where those merch like people came from. Those like
the distros that just had fucking everything.
And everything. Like you just like
Rick to Life was just selling bootleg copies of everyone's demos.
Yep. Which I would later sell for like $100 a pop. I'm like,
were they all bootlegs? I always thought they were like official.
If you bought them for Rick to Life, they were probably bootlegs.
Chances are, yeah.
But I like the guy Rick from SAD and 3 Years Older. He had a legit distro, and like Dave, State of Mind, and all that stuff. That's or Mike Dead Broke. That's all above the board shit.
It was like upstairs for some reason. There, it had like it's like all these tables set up.
There were at that Long Island Fest, there were so many bands and merch tables that there was just merch splayed fucking everywhere.
Yeah, it was like, but that was like the coolest thing I ever seen.
Yeah,
that was like a flea market.
Did Milwaukee play that?
Something? No, I wish. No. I wish that would have been sick.
What were some notable shows you guys played?
That was like, that place was like at a height at that point, and I hadn't gone back there. I think John was telling me that it existed for longer after that. Than the last one I went to was like a girl got hit in like a car accident outside, and I saw her get hit, and it was like one of the scariest.
A lot of people did, unfortunately.
Craziest things I had ever seen at a show, and that was almost changing. Like that was a point that changed it for me a lot too. I was like, oh my god. But I remember, I think the bands like raised money. They did something after that. There was like a
Newfound Glory became incredibly popular, maybe like the next weekend or something. So they definitely thanked her in their next CD, and I'm sure, yeah.
But that was crazy.
What were some notable shows that Milwaukee played?
I mean, I don't even know. We played some weird ones. I think the notable ones to me are the ones that don't make any sense. Like, we played a band contest at Sacred Heart. I think it was like an all-girls campus or something weird. But we played on the radio there, like their college radio or something. I don't know how we got on that, but it was us, The Sleeping, and some other bands. I don't know what it was. But we ended up driving all the way up there to like play this show. Like, I guess it was like a cafeteria. I don't know what it was. They had a raised stage in there, and we were like, the whole cool part about it was like you're being like broadcast on the radio, like while you're playing, and I was sick. Like, I'm sure it wasn't really sick, but like, and the way we were playing, it probably sounded like the radio exploded or something. Like, we're like feeding back into like the amps, and like you couldn't see Mike jumping off of everything in the entire place there, but we lost. The Sleeping won the contest. It was like a contest too.
Of course they did.
They had a light show, and we were like, man, we didn't know that you're supposed to like come in with a light show. Like,
I remember that. Yeah,
they had a separate guy who just did lights. And,
yeah,
like,
I bought a PS2 from that guy once.
And that was some
fact.
We're like, what? This guy like totally had his own.
I would say, having been in the band too, like most of the shows felt like cool big shows because it was the first time we were getting out of our town and playing places. You know what I mean? Every show felt like an adventure. The Blood Red Hostage regularly show was probably a huge one for us that you played also with Heads Versus Breakers.
Yep.
Yeah,
I have the poster for that, the silkscreen poster.
Mike also has the poster, I believe. Yeah. He got the one copy our band had.
He has it still in his house. But those are the biggest shows because I mean we started imploding and doing all kinds of stuff, changing band names and losing band members, and I think that all kind of happened once like the attention of the record labels and stuff started to pour in, and like I think everybody wanted to like make it really bad at that point. Once we knew that our local bands were already starting to make it, like you started seeing Taking Back Sunday or Making It, or it was on MTV, like I think it was like Surf and Skate Fest or something, and like people were like really starting to like blow up. But I remember thinking back then too, but like I thought the bigger bands who should have blown up weren't blowing up like the way that I thought they should. And that was kind of another thing to me, was like, okay, I guess they're like picking, like, I don't know how they were picking it. Maybe it was all at that time. It was like a beauty pageant in a way, a little bit.
Style
like,
over substance.
Cute bands or whatever. Because I'm like, these other, like Oddmop, I thought should have been like way bigger than, I don't know, than Take Back Sunday or whatever else. I mean, they got their own attention separately. But yeah, I think you guys know what I mean. I don't know.
Definitely.
Yeah, like a cult following.
I thought like, but I was like, oh, the guys who just put out some like a demo, like they're already like, they were just like shooting. Everyone was just shooting up to the upper stratosphere super quick. Like, whoa. And even us were like getting like attention. And I think we only had a demo too, so it was like these other guys have like full albums.
There seemed to be a next obvious step for bands to take where there maybe wasn't before, you know?
Yeah, but I do think that's what also caused like the bands to like explode, because then people started arguing about like random stuff that didn't matter. And
yeah, you started to hear about managers and
publicists,
and it's like we never use those words ever.
And it started to not be the thing, the punk hardcore thing that we were in love with, like to begin with. It started to like move away from that. It wasn't the Long Island show where everyone was, like piling in there from school and like hanging out, having fun. Like you could feel like the business end of it like creeping in.
When art and commerce meet, no good things come of it, you know? Unless you're making a lot of money, then I guess it's pretty good.
Unless you can buy a house, it's pretty good.
But like, I mean, it spawned a lot of good things too. Like people being more competitive made them want to write better and make better music, better production values. Everybody, then you started upgrading your equipment too, and I think the general like scene got better in a way. But like, it was a lot of bands. Like when I was looking back on it, I was talking to somebody recently, but I was like, everybody had a band at that point. All of a sudden, like it wasn't just. It felt like none of us had bands. You guys were one of the first bands that were local I saw with the Waiting Process, and Chris Baldwin with his bands, and I can't forget Edna's Goldfish either, because that was really neat, thinking you can get to MTV too. But like, I think we saw them. I think it was the Vanderbilt, something like that.
Yep.
Some big venue. That was a big deal. I think everybody poured in there. Other local bands was on. I think the guy 9 Days was band. That band played the show over there, and other stuff like was connected to like the big scene. But I don't know. I think it improved it in a way to see like everyone wanted to make it to the next level, but I don't know. It was weird. It started to be a flood of everybody's younger brothers, little brothers,
right.
had a band. Like
it was alienating in a way. It's like this isn't the scene I know anymore.
I blame Blink-182.
It could have been partially that.
Yeah, partially. Yeah.
I've maintained that there was a time when we were in high school where everybody in my grade or your grade were either wearing a Blink-182 T-shirt or a Waiting Process T-shirt.
Yeah, no, for sure.
On every day.
And it started to be. It wasn't like how we all like I tried to practice. Like I said earlier, like I practiced every single day of my like life trying to like catch up to Pat or whoever other people who were already playing their instruments. Like, but it didn't feel like that's what it was. It felt like then there was a lot of bands who didn't even know like what they were doing.
Yeah,
I don't want to say like I don't want to say bad bands, but I think we were like there started to be so many bands, but they weren't good. They weren't technically good. They wanted to be like people wanted to be the next Taking Back Sunday already, even though they just took off. Or
yeah, and they would have the look down and kind of like the moves down, but like the music wasn't.
Let's just call them North Star.
Shots fired. Anyway, so jumping ahead a little bit, you move out to California. What sparked that?
My dad had a heart attack. That was a big part of it, and I don't know. I guess I never like. My grandfather, who passed away when I was a kid, but this was the next time where I was like, okay, like somebody else could actually like die. Like death wasn't like, I guess it wasn't a real thing yet when you were a kid, you know, like it happens. You knew it was real, but you kind of always forgot that like we're all going to pass away like at some point, kind of thing. And I thought that could have been it. But I was like, having lived here, my parents were divorced, and my dad like lived out there, like. I'd visit like every other summer, and I was like, I have to like know my dad, especially if it's gonna like you need someone to take care of him to get better. It's like I didn't know the whole deal of having a heart attack and having heart surgery and all that stuff and how it works, but it was like you know what, I'll do it. Like I took care of him as much as I could until his wife would get like my stepmom would get back from her job, and like it's a lot. It's a lot to take care of somebody who just had like heart surgery. But at that point, I could have went back. I was lucky enough where I could just like stay there with my stepbrothers and stuff, who were also into music. They had punk bands and they had their own punk scene over there. And
this was like Bay Area?
Bay Area, mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's when like, they're like, Phil, like now I was living there, and they're like, oh, you want to come to shows with us? And like, we're going to go to Gilman. And I'm like, oh my God, like this is freaking crazy. Yeah. This is their venues, the Gilman, or another place called Burnt Ramen. It's like they're really like there's like a punk. I think they said it used to be a meat packing building. I forget what they said, but like all the kids lived there. It was the thing I could relate it to that it reminded me the most is like the Foot Clan lair from the first like
yeah.
It was like that kind of thing. It had like skate ramps in it and like. All graffitied up, and
it's funny because Ninja Turtle bad guys borrow a lot from like crust punk looking kids, you know.
Yeah, it's like and they were there. Like because we didn't really we had like punk kids in a different way out here. Like they had like they had some gritty like homeless like punk type. Like,
yeah, Lindenhurst didn't have any crusties like that or anything.
Like it was like
not the punks anyway.
No, right.
These kids didn't even finish like high school. Like. It was something I hadn't seen. Like there was like another layer, yet another layer of like punk and like, but in the way it was similar. It was similar to our scene. It felt comfortable in that way, where I was like, okay, if I'm gonna live here, my stepbrother played drums in his band, and it was like awesome. Like that, his other friend played bass, and other friends played guitars. Everybody played. They didn't have a scene like we did, but they were aware of our scene too. Like. I met like people who like this one girl was obsessed with Glassjaw, and I was like, oh, well, like I used to practice across the hall from these guys or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff, like, their minds were blown in a way, too. It was just like, and it reminded me, like, even though I'm across the country, like, these people are obsessed with, like, Taking Back Sunday and all these other bands and people that we just, like, happen to randomly, I'm like, we were just lucky in that way to have, like, Long Island Zoo, even, like, all those shows I would describe from there, or Ethical Human Center. Like, when I would go over there and tell them about my show, like, experiences, they're like, oh my God, like, what are you talking, like, what are you talking about? And then you kind of knew. Then I was like, oh wow, like we really were lucky, like somehow or another. I don't know why our random little town is like connected to all this stuff, but I guess that's what this podcast is.
Yeah, but we're trying to figure it out.
It was connected over there too, so it was like a strange thing. And I felt like a little bit. I was like, okay, I felt experienced. So like, if I had to like jump into this other scene, it's similar to our scene. Like they got their flyers and they got their demos and they got their songs. And I started a little band over there too when I played still over there. This is probably like in the MySpace days, and like so
mid to late aughts.
Yeah, it's probably like, but that was like its own thing too. Like I think there was a tangible like change. Like, music was changing. Like you guys knew there was like the emo we knew wasn't the emo that we got popular. Like
not at all. Yeah.
When the signing spree started to happen with like bands and then you started having the processed bands, like, and then you couldn't even tell anymore. Like, are these real bands?
Yeah.
Or is it like the record labels like assembled? Or
yeah, I mean, the word emo definitely has a definite cutoff depending on what generation you're in and what age group you're in. You'll get a different answer from everybody as to what is emo.
Absolutely.
We're kind of in that second wave.
I mean, I think that's what I thought of it. It changed into this other thing, but then it changed again. I think then that. It started becoming indie or whatever.
Right.
I mean, which didn't even make sense to me because, I mean, the whole thing was indie anyway.
Right. But then the indie bands were selling more than pop stars.
So what the fuck does indie even mean?
Yeah.
So like,
it's just an aesthetic, essentially.
Nobody wanted to be called emo anymore because after like what was going, the hot topic.
Right.
Emo.
Indie is a nice way of saying hipster without, being condescending, I guess.
Yeah, the hipster thing too was attached to it, and I was just like, man, I was already a hipster. I didn't know what a hipster was.
Right.
Yeah. As long as there's been scenes, there's been hipsters.
I just thought like when these bands came to my town, they looked cool. They were like wearing all these like thrift store clothes and stuff. I was like, this is sick,
Yep.
And then we were like, okay, like we don't have money anyway, and if we do have money, it's
turns out they were just broke too.
Yeah, they were just broke too. So we all like. Then looking broke was cool, and then you felt like I can't even look broke anymore because now. Like,
well, then like a couple of years later, you'd walk into the Gap or Abercrombie, and they would have like fake thrift store T-shirts of like imaginary businesses that looked, they looked beat up.
I will give the waiting process the credit of doing a distress print way before anyone else did that, because James just didn't pull the ink on the shirt all the way. I'm like, wow, that looks kind of good.
It looks like a thrift store shirt. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's another thing. I mean, I worked there too for years.
Right. You served time at CRI.
Served time. But yeah, and I worked there with Chris Bowman. But then like everyone was telling me like the bands used to practice in the basement here too, and I was just like, once again, it was
scary, dank fucking basement.
Yeah, you couldn't escape that. Like the graphic design somehow, like my early Photoshop copy, gave me enough skills to like design T-shirts there, and then the T-shirts were connected.
What did they use there? They used Corel or something.
Corel Draw.
Yeah.
And Photoshop, like combined. I had to learn how to use Corel because I didn't have that. But yeah, then that was another thing because then there was like the younger kids in the scene worked there with me. Like they were like working in the back with the actual, like I would do the art in the front, and in the back printing the shirts, which is basically like not like a sweatshop. It almost was like a legal sweatshop, right? I guess. And that was connected to the scene too because then we're printing up all the band shirts. Like this week's bands coming into. Which there were so many of them. I guess they were doing pretty good. Like they need like 30 of these or whatever, and they need hoodies and whatever else. And like that place printed a lot of the shirts, that band shirts. I think I'm pretty sure like all kinds of stuff. Just connected too, because then Merch Direct was like around the same era too, and that was like a huge thing.
Oh yeah, a lot of scene kids work there too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I worked there for like 5 seconds. John, I think you worked there too.
Yeah, 2 stints. The first Belmore spot, and then the second Belmore spot for a minute. I packed many a simple plan shirts to people.
The Hive shirt story is always good, but we'll leave that one for another day.
Yeah.
So you went back to school at some point?
I did. I went
Later
back to school. I went back to school like how many years ago is that now? 4 years ago? Or I graduated 4 years ago. But when I came back here, I still had to like. Thing is, I told you in the beginning, my grandfather taught me to draw Charlie Brown, and I came from a Navy family. But the one thing he didn't want us doing was enlisting in the services at all. Like it's kind of his dying wish was for us all to go to college and graduate and get a proper education and whatnot. So it's kind of like my promise to him before he passed away was kind of to do that. So I always like had that in the back of my head that I need to like go back and finish like college. I have to because I promised I would do it to like the person who inspired me to even think do art or whatever. So it was like for me that was like a huge thing I had yet to do, and I finally did do that. And it was strange because I remember the art school that I went to, like it was different than the way it is now, or not necessarily worse, but it's not the same scene that it was when I first went there. Where like I could go to school with people who knew the bands I knew or whatever.
Yeah.
They still had that for their era, but that like this I guess like the connection between all of the things was different when I went back. I knew it would be, but it was like I'm older than all of these kids like coming back here like to go back to school, and like I've been to all of these buildings, and strangely enough, like I had some of the same professors and teachers I had originally. So I was just like, oh my god, they're still here. They're just like they just look old. They look older. They're the same guys, but like they're still here doing it, teaching comic books mostly. I mean, that's what I kind of went there for, cartooning and sequential art or whatever, telling stories. But and that to me also is like a punk thing because it's like it's a similar kind of thing where making comics is like an independent indie comics thing. It's like the same thing as like a punk scene in a way.
Yeah.
I think it's like making zines. It's the same kind of mentality as making the zines and making the flyers and everything else. You just need a photocopier and just like you could photocopy like 1 million copies of your comic and then just like staple them together. Similar in the way that we'd like make all of our old demos. Like we'd photocopy all the covers and everything and cut them out and assemble them. It's the same kind of, to me, it's like the same kind of thing where you want to express yourself like in a comic form or paper form, and you can make your story, you can write it, you can illustrate it, and then you can like print it up DIY. Like I guess DIY is the thing that really connects to all of it in a way too. It's like you just have to have the idea. That's really it. And the means of doing it doesn't even matter how you do it as long as you can get it out to people who like want to see it. Or the community is similar too, where like people had their influences of like what their favorite comics. And it's what's strange is it's similar in the same way that we all started on like MTV music and whatnot, and then you slowly like discover that it goes deeper. There's an underground, and underground comics was connected the same way. Like we all started with Marvel comics and DC comics, and like people like punching each other like in the comics for like having superpowers to like Dan Klaus who like ended up doing 8-Ball and had some movies too, like Ghost World was based off of one of his comics, and like that's an underground like comic artist I really liked. And like then you start to discover like R. Crumb. I think with whatever scenes it is, even in the old, like you discover the old punk records, the old punk CDs and stuff. The same way you discover like the old underground comics. It's the same way. One of my underground comics teachers just passed away recently, Diane Newman. Rest in peace. But she was really big. She was friends with like that whole scene of like R. Crumb and all those guys, like the underground comic scene. She did the women's comics, kind of like feminist comics. I learned a lot in her classes about like personal comics, like making your own like comics that express yourself and whatnot. And one of the comics she worked on is called Twisted Sister, and she was telling us in class how like that band basically, their band name is like from that.
It's from those comics.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
So it is, in a way, that's connected to music in a funny way, and they knew R. Crumb, and R. Crumb is what's the Keep on Truckin'? I think it's the Janis Joplin's album. He was illustrating album covers too.
Right. Yeah.
And I think they were all kind of like
Zappa
connected.
He worked with
in
Zappa.
a strange way.
Yeah.
But so like in the same way, like the underground comics is connected to the underground music, and it's all kind of Once again, I mean, even I think for me, art's always been connected to that, because even like whenever like the rise, everyone was getting tattoos and sleeves, and like I think the tattoo scene goes along with the music scene too, and then
sure,
a lot of that's just drawing, but on people's skin. And although I did have a professor, the chairman of the school, he really explained to us, just because you're good at art and you know how to do like pretty illustrations and stuff, there's a total different art form than tattooing somebody's skin, because it's not you have to keep the body in mind as like, it's not just like a piece of paper or a canvas. It's like when the art is meant to be like worn and like lived in, it's like a different thing. You need to design around that. It's not just slapping a picture on your arm and then like thinking that's how tattoo art. There's a history to it, and
because there are some tattoo artists out there that are phenomenal, like portraits, and it looks like they literally painted on somebody, and it's like, to me, that's amazing, but it's not a tattoo. That's why certain things like the traditional art and like the Oriental art, like there's a reason why that was popular, because it works on the body as a tattoo.
Yep, you have to and you have to keep in mind that people have to move, like the artwork has to with them, and it's a lot to it. It's not that I have anything against like crazy like tattoo whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean it's impressive, and I'll never be able to do it, but it just certain things work, and certain
I almost became a tattoo artist. There was like a moment where I was like at a crossroads where I almost was going to do that. I didn't do it. The guy who I was working with was going to start doing it with passed away, but Joe Venchulo was his name, but he had working at a tattoo shop called Super 88.
Oh, I remember that, yeah.
But yeah, he was like, "You can practice on my thighs, Phil, and like I can get you to figure."
We can go lower on your leg if you want.
It might be uncomfortable, like, but you can practice on my legs, like trying to figure out like how to do that. And even then, that still sounded scary to me. I'm like, I don't know, man. Like,
yeah.
Like you're gonna have these permanent like practice like drawings on your leg. Like, I guess it sounded scary though to me. Like I think that's the other thing. Like with comics and stuff, you can erase it and like whatever later. But I think there's another level to like permanently marking something where I just didn't want to do that.
Yeah, it takes some bravery, especially in the beginning.
Yeah,
to want to do that.
I designed like one tattoo in my life for somebody, and like this is as a kid, like, and I didn't know better, but they're like, this was like in that whole era where like everything had Tasmanian Devil on it.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that joking, but
yeah, no, it's not a joke. And he was like, I think he wanted Tasmanian Devil with like an Italian shirt on, like Italian flag is. Yeah.
Oh
like, I want it forwards on the front of my shirt, but backwards on the back of my body.
And I did it. I drew it out for him, as a kid. And I don't remember. I'd have to ask. My mom probably would know. I think it was somebody she know, and like my son's a talented artist. He can draw your tattoo up for you, and he did. Guess that guy was walking around with that. And now that I look back at it, I don't think I really drew it that good.
Draw me a Calvin pissing on a Mets logo.
I mean, he had to take Bill Larson was one of my big idols. And it's scary because he retired from drawing like comic strips because of the way the industry was and the syndicates, and they were taking away all the space from the artists. In a way, he was punking away too, if you think about it. He was like, you know what, you guys are gonna like change it as an art form and make it not good anymore, then because they were just wanting to fit more ad space and push the comics. Like,
you got to be a big Scott Adams fan, right? That's a joke.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of the worst people in the world, the Dilbert guy.
Oh no, he's not really into that. Strangely, I was into like some of the weird ones though. Like I didn't understand what Doonesbury was talking about.
No, but there was a cigarette that talked in it, so I was in.
Yeah, like I thought it was cool anyway. I don't know. The Far Side, obviously, I think everyone loved that when we were younger.
The shirts were huge in junior high, Midvale School for the Gifted.
That was your dose of weird. Like just at any time you could open it up and there was something surreal even.
Yeah, so now currently, how does that bring you all to what you're doing today?
I don't know. It's strange. I mean, I'm working on music now, and I've been trying to like on the verge of like been writing a bunch of songs and stuff and practicing them, but we're still looking for a drummer. I haven't done that yet. Although I
don't know any.
Yeah.
I think I got your drum kit too, John, and then
the Samson one that I bought from Chris Tanner a million years ago.
I thought it was a Tama Rockstar. I don't know what it was.
I don't think it no.
Whatever it was.
I had a white Rockstar I sold back to Guitar Center that you said someone bought because they like the bass drum decal or something.
That always works. But yeah, no, I'm still working on music stuff. I've been doing artwork for people's stuff too. Like I did one of the Somerset Throwers t-shirts.
He's also drawn the famed Seattle Chef's Kiss you may have seen around places.
Sir, yeah.
That's true. That too.
Our food correspondent, Joe Seattle.
Yes. And so much more.
I do artwork for people, like especially when it comes to something band related. I'm always ready to go like that, you know. If I had the time to do it. Because I still always remember like what it means to have like good art for whatever project you're working on. It's super important to and not everyone's gonna be the most talented artist in the world or best graphic designer, but if I can just lend myself to I guess it's that you always have to give back. If you don't keep giving back to the scene in a way, then it's gonna go away, you know. I think it's that I think we know that that's kind of the unspoken, like when I go same thing at the comics like festivals and stuff, like I want to buy like the new Beginner Guys comic because like, you gotta support the art form because it'll just go away if no one's supporting. It's something I really loved, and it's gotten me through all kinds of stuff in my life, you know. You should buy the band's t-shirts. You should buy their demo, even if you only like one of their songs. You should, you know, unless they're total jerks outside the
reverence for the process is important.
Yeah, you gotta. I think I always will be gravitating towards doing that for bands and stuff or friends who do an album cover and whatnot. But I'm working on my own independent comics still. I'm still like an underground comics guy forever, even if I don't post the stuff on the internet. But I'm currently...
Without saying anything, or can we state that you're working on something top secret that will probably be widely available at some point?
This is true, yeah. I can't say...
No details beyond that.
Yeah. Kind of NDA and stuff, but...
So where can people find some of your stuff on the web?
You could find me under my name, Phillip Tajalle, Phillip Tajalle, and that's everywhere for me. I use my actual name on Twitter or Instagram. My
website as well?
Yep, firstandlastname.com. And yeah, I mean, I'm always working on stuff. You might not see me posting anything right now, but I'm working on stuff.
He's a busy boy.
Even when we stop doing this, I'm gonna go back to doing that. So
cool.
I guess we have one more question, right?
Yeah. So our last question for you. If you were to describe Lindenhurst to somebody who's never been there, what would you tell them?
It depends what generation of me.
Current generation of Phil Tajalle. How would you describe Lindenhurst?
I describe Lindenhurst. No. I mean, I probably think of it as a small town. But I would say that it's been filled with a lot of amazing things over the course of my life. I mean, my most fondest memories have been, a lot of them are associated with here, or my favorite people. Even though I've lived on both sides of the country, a lot of my favorite people are still here. Try to describe it, I don't know how to describe it exactly, but it's something about Lindenhurst people. I don't know. We all went to the same. We're all tightly knit, and I think more so. I've met people from other towns, and I don't think they're as tightly knit as our town was or is. And I think that's probably what I don't know what you'd call it, camaraderie. I don't know, but we've all been around and we've all like stayed together for forever because of whatever we were interested in. But
we'll call it camaraderie.
Could be. Right. I think it's I don't know what the word for it is, but I guess that's what we're talking about. I guess for enough of these episodes, we're gonna get to a better definition.
Yep.
Maybe not.
Or not.
It'll be entertaining nonetheless. But, all right, Phil. Well, thanks for talking to us.